All right, there we go. We're live. Forge gang. I am still a hard man. Let's go. All right. So I'm here to tell you, yes, you, that politics is cringe. Politics in the first world is completely pointless and meaningless. When I talk about first world countries, I am referring, of course, to the developed world, Europe, North America, Australasia, some parts of Northeast Asia. You know what I'm talking about. Fortune 7 countries, developed countries. Yeah, politics in the first world is completely cucked and completely meaningless and is devoid of real motivation, real cause, and real purpose. The only people that are really moved or bothered by politics is the baby boomers. And why not? Because they're the ones that have most of the economic authority, most of the economic audacity in the West. So, if you're not 55 and older, if you're not 55 and above, I would tell you that politics is a waste of your time. Politics is a complete waste of your time and effort, and you shouldn't really bother with politics because it's cringe and it's dumb. None of these politicians are going to change a thing. They're just going to lie to you to tell you that, to get them elected into office. Economists are not going to do nothing. Business managers ain't going to do nothing. Okay? They're going to cuck to the banks. They're going to cuck to the Federal Reserve. They'll just cuck right off to the banks first and foremost. Complete waste of your time, complete waste of your energy. If there is going to be real change, it's going to happen in the third world. It's going to happen in developing countries because that is where people have nothing to lose and everything to gain. See, the first world, everybody has everything to lose and nothing to win. So nothing is going to change remotely. Nothing is going to change, okay? And besides, human beings are fundamentally flawed as a species. Human beings, they say, were anatomically evolved in Africa or whatever. There's some new studies that have come out that say that humans first evolved in the Middle East or Central Asia or even in Europe. But what does it matter anyways? Because are humans going to even survive the next 100 years? It's very doubtful that you're going to see a human person that's going to live another 100 years who is not going to be genetically modified, not going to be infused with some kind of robotic AI prosthetics or something of some kind. Like, purely natural people are not going to exist in 100 years. It's going to completely change, and it's going to change very radically and fast because science and technology outpace the mainstream always. Science and technology is always going to be at the forefront of that. Also, humans are under original sin, as St. Augustine said. St. Augustine of Hippo said, human beings are under original sin. Human beings are fallen. They have free will, but they're fallen in original sin. So human beings are fundamentally flawed anyways, one way or the other. at least if you talk from a purely Christian theological perspective. We talk about Augustinian Aristotelian thought in regards to original sin. But yeah, I wouldn't put my money into any politics. In fact, I wish I could just leave the United States, change my citizenship, leave and never come back. I'm not going to miss a single thing. Just take nomad capitalists' advice and just leave. Let it rot. Let these cities rot. I am so glad I do not live in the country. Well, I'm sorry, I don't live in the city. I'm so glad that I don't have to take the metro or none of that stuff, or involve myself in anything with city life or cities. Total waste of time, polluted air, horrible traffic, taking the metro every day. Just a horrible thing. And then now you got CEOs of United Healthcare just getting taken out by these would-be Neo-Ted Kaczynskiites or something. I don't know. You got these guys putting gas on themselves, dosing them with petrol gas and setting themselves on fire to protest about Palestine. It's just... every time there is an election cycle, especially when there's a cultural cycle or cultural change taking place, just the most craziest shit happens. Whether it's Reagan in 1980 or Donald Trump or Barack Obama 2008 or Donald Trump in 2016, 2024, it's always the same shit. And it's just old. Thankfully, I'm not buying into no politics. I didn't vote for nobody because there's no one out there that represents my interests in America. And America is controlled by British intelligence anyways. Every politician is bought off by the Federal Reserve and by fiat currency. And it's all controlled out of the City of London anyways, and international Freemasonic lodges and international money. But that's kind of going down the Alex Jones route. Alex Jones is cringe. Alex Jones is a retard. But whatever. It is what it is. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about any kind of particular group of humans surviving because most biologically natural humans are not going to even exist in 100 years from now because everybody will be genetically engineered, socially engineered in smart cities, 15-minute cities, smart cities and stuff. I wouldn't even worry about it, dude. Besides, there's 1 billion Caucasians alive today, so there's no so-called European genocide. It's just a bunch of Malthusian, neo-Malthusian, Fabian socialist bullshit driven by British intelligence and fiat currency and stuff. And I don't have the time in my life to argue with a bunch of fiscally conservative rednecks, fiscally conservative neo-Thatcherites and Reaganites and people whose politics essentially is more in line with Barry Goldwater and with Ronald Reagan than it is with the angry mustache man or Jeff Davis. Okay, I got news for you. If you read Angry Mustache Man's biography, that has nothing to do with Reaganomics, trickle-down economics, or anything to do with being fiscally conservative. Invading Poland has zero to nothing to do with being fiscally conservative or being a supporter of Reagan, okay? You got all these fucking libertarians, and they think that somehow they have a common ideology with the 1930s or the 1860s or the 1770s. Well, the founding fathers were not fiscally conservative. They declared a war against their own mother country. and fought for 8 years an entire revolution that completely changed the entire fabric of American society in its day. That's not fiscally conservative. The Continental Congress billing out, printing out endless volumes of continental currency, that's nothing to do with being fiscally conservative. Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton were not fiscal conservatives. That's a bunch of dumb, stupid bullshit that these people have propagandized you with. A bunch of people trying to break away from the Union to try to own another group of human beings, put them down into perpetual servitude, and trying to mark them off as being subhuman is not being fiscally conservative. Fighting an entire war, a continental-wide war, to keep the country from falling apart because of British imperial interests trying to divide it. Lyndon LaRouche and Henry Carey, come to mind when I talk about this stuff. It has nothing to do with being fiscally conservative. Transcontinental railroads and building up an entire mobilized army and fighting Native Americans in endless wars is not fiscally conservative. Invading Poland, invading the Poles, invading France, occupying half of fucking Europe, building the gas chambers and killing a bunch of millions of innocent people is not fiscally conservative. And even Ronald Reagan himself was not fiscally conservative because he invaded Panama. He overthrew the Panamanian president, an elected president in Panama, supported the Contras in Nicaragua, tried to overthrow the Iranian government and bombed cities in Libya. That's not fiscally conservative. It never was. Invading Iraq and Afghanistan is not being fiscally conservative. I don't have time in my life to waste with a bunch of dumb, stupid, fiscally conservative, Barry Goldwater, Ronald Reagan, Margaret Thatcher idiots that think that Augusto Pinochet was somehow like the angry mustache man or like Francisco Franco. They weren't. National socialism is more akin to Assad and to Gaddafi than anything with Augusto Pinochet. Augusto Pinochet believed in free market. Augusto Pinochet used the military to privatize and to promote free economics and open market and business. He imported the Chicago School, an entire school of economists that were trained in Chicago. That has nothing to do with so-called National Socialism. Gaddafi's government is far more in line with the 1930s certain country whose name I'm not going to mention because, code. Speaking in code. Oh, boo-hoo. Yeah, I don't care what a bunch of stupid rednecks think, and I don't really give a shit. I don't give a shit what a bunch of Zionists think, okay? 400,000 Palestinians have died in the last couple of years in Gaza, being ethnically cleansed and genocided. Okay, that's not really... You think that's great? It's not. And I find it funny how these Mr. Fiscally Conservative Reaganite supporters, Margaret Thatcher supporters, hate Islam and stuff and talk about how Islam is bad and stuff, when in fact Islam is actually more socially conservative than they are. They believe in open market. They believe in same-sex marriage. Well, not all of them, but some of them do. Okay, they're socially liberal. They're Fabian socialists and entirely socially liberal. The only conservative thing about them is they're fiscally conservative like Barry Goldwater was. And Barry Goldwater was, well, guess. Take a guess. So I don't have time to argue with a bunch of these dumb, stupid people. And by the way, one of the funniest things in the world is when an autistic spurg tells you that you're an autistic spurg. That is one of the freaking funniest things I have ever seen in my life. And it could have only happened on Discord, because Discord is one of the dumbest, absolutely stupidest places in the universe. And they let pornography run rampant in there. So much pornography, so much decadence. It is terrible. I don't understand how any so-called Reaganite conservative or so-called conservative in the West thinks that's more conservative than Islam. Muslims believe in nuclear families. They follow the laws of the Hadith. The Hadith is the foundation of their Quranic laws. They also have appropriated laws from the early caliphate. And it says that only a man and a woman can get together. I'm not trying to make any hate out of it. Do not tell me that I'm spreading hate. I am just telling you that in the Rashidun Caliphate, in the Umayyad Caliphate, they followed extremely traditional family values, and most Muslim countries, for the most part, do. I'm not talking about freaking Abu Dubai. I'm not comparing and contrasting apples and oranges, okay? I am very well aware that there are Shiites and Sunnis and other Islamic branches, and they do not agree on everything in regards to the Quran. So I'm just going to tell you, most Muslims are actually unironically more conservative than these so-called fiscal conservative social libs on Discord. I'm going to tell you that Orthodox Jews, of all people in the world, are more conservative, believe in quintessential family values, believe in quintessential ethnocentric values. They're more traditional, conservative, and religious than most of these so-called Discord yippies. Bunch of Discord, Fabian, socialite, Malthusian, so-called fiscally conservative, Ayn Rand school, free market, fiscal conservatives. Orthodox Jews, Muslims, and Buddhists are far more traditional and conservative than all your fucking gay asses combined. Get over yourselves. And you know what, for that matter, Japanese homosexuals are more conservative than you are. Black Pigeon Speaks uploaded or did a video talking about how conservative and how traditional or more traditional Japanese homosexuals are. Because Japanese homosexuals support Japanese culture. They are not trying to spread a bunch of sexual decadence and trying to disorientate and break down society through class strife and through ethnocide and through self-flagellation, hatred. Japanese feminists and Japanese homosexuals, of all people in the world, are more traditional and more conservative than most of these Discord yippies are. Yes, sirree, that is just a fact of the matter. Eastern LGBT people, Eastern socialist, Eastern nationalists are way more traditional and conservative and worlds apart from Western decadence. Worlds apart from the West, dude. The West is the center of corruption. And that is just, it's a shameful truth, but it is still the truth. Regardless of what it does to your feelings, Western civilization is the epitome of absolute deranged nihilism gone wild. Absolute deranged nihilism, self-flagellation, ethnocide, self-hatred, hatred, complaining about cultural appropriation, talking about a hatred of one's own body, a hatred of the way one was born, gender dyslexia, gender dysphoria, just all the worst trends and stuff. And it's Britain and the United States that leads the way in that. It is Anglo countries, fundamentally Anglo countries, who have been democracies the longest, Thessaliocracies the longest, and the Athenians would laugh if they saw what Americans and Brits and Canadians, New Zealanders and Aussies were doing today. It's practically just it is just horrific. It is just it's awful. I don't know what to say. And you know what? Eastern Europeans too. Traditional Catholics and Orthodox in Eastern and Southern Europe. Even they are more traditional. Now they've adopted a lot of modernist crap too. They're still in the West as well. They're not as conservative as the Middle East, but they're still more traditional and more conservative than most of these discord, fiscally conservative, Barry Goldwater, Ronald Reagan, Ayn Rand types that somehow think that they have something in common with an 1860s, 1930s ideology. And it boggles the mind. It boggles the mind. How in the world do you get around that sort of cognitive dissonance? And also, they talk about how they're anti-communist. Well, they have embraced Fabian socialism. What is Fabian socialism? Well, take a guess. 1968, the Beatles, the hippies, the counterculture movement, Tavistock Institute, rock and roll, rap, freestyle, and feminism. That's Fabian socialism, okay? You've already embraced socialism. You just didn't embrace economic Marxism. You still have the capitalist free market, but you adopted social Marxism from the Frankfurt School and from the Trotskyists and the managerial revolution. You're already well down the road of what was said on the Georgia runestones, the Georgia Stonehenge stones, or the Georgia stones, than you probably would like to think. If there is an Antichrist, and I do think there will be an Antichrist, he's going to come from the United States or Western Europe. Antichrist, the kingdom of the Antichrist, is going to come out of Western civilization. Yes, it'll probably be moved to Babylon, but it's going to come from the West. Mystery Babylon the Great is going to come from the British Empire and the United States. You don't think so? Well, then who is the most decadent people to have ever existed in the history of the world? What civilization is the most practically decadent and most practically nihilistic civilization in the history of man? An evil that is so awful it has not been seen since the days of Noah. And this was talked about in the gospel. There will arise a wickedness and an evil that has not been seen since the days of Noah, since before the flood. Guess what civilization and what society that is? Well, it's not Islam. Does that mean that No, I don't think Islam is right, but you know something? You know what? I'm thinking about reading the Quran. You don't like it? I don't care. My life, my world, buddy. I'm going to read the fucking Quran. Okay? And if I want to read the frickin' Talmud, I will too. It doesn't mean I'm going to become a Muslim or a Jew. Doesn't mean none of that. Okay? Juice was talking about the Bhagavad Gita, for crying out loud. Nobody said that he was anti-white or anti-Christian, and he was talking about the Bhagavad Gita. And then I start talking about the Quran, and somehow I'm bad. Okay, well then I guess Juice is anti-white as well, isn't he? There is nothing funnier than a Discord that is just full 90%, 80% made up of a bunch of spurgs. telling you that you're a spurg. There is just nothing funnier than that. That is one of the funniest things I have ever seen in my entire life. Ever. And a bunch of people who think that vaginoplasties, that they think that vaginoplasties are the real thing, and they're telling me that I'm the incel. Okay, sure. That makes so much sense. Yeah, that makes so much subjective sense, dude. Yeah, everything is subjective. There's nothing that's really objective. There's no objective truth. Everything is frequently subjective. Cognitive disoneness, cognitive dissonance, absolute cognitive dissonance. Reading the Bhagavad Gita is not anti-white, supposedly, but reading the Quran is. Okay. Sure, bro. Oh, hey, what's up, Ghost of Niccolo? Interdimensional Lizard is saying that they did not get a notification. That's interesting. Yeah, I was just wondering why the autistic spurgs that make up the majority of Soberman's Discord were saying that the Bhagavad Gita was not anti-Christian or not anti-Caucasian, but reading the Quran somehow is. You know? I guess it never occurred to some of these people that there's probably white Albanians and Bosnians that are Muslim. Yes, there's actually white Muslims. There's actually people in Europe, multi-generational Muslims, that are genetically, ethnically European. I guess it never occurred to these people. Wow. Yeah, most people in the Islamic world are going to be of various cultural diversity. But Bosnia is not a Middle Eastern country. Albania is not a Middle Eastern country. They are Muslim, but they are still Europeans. And have you ever seen have you seen Christian Armenians and Christian Coptics? Because spoiler, they're not genetically European, but they are Christian, and they have also been Christian for a longer period of time than most Celts and Germanics in Northern Europe have been. Once upon a time, Northern Europe, Scandinavia, Northern Europe, was not part of Western civilization. Okay, the Roman Empire was in the Mediterranean. Thousands and thousands of years, the Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans, they were not in Northern Europe, they were in the Mediterranean. They were in the Middle East. Persia and Assyria were all in the Middle East, okay? Northern Europe was just full of backward barbarians. Well, the barbarians were probably not as backward as a lot of people say they were, whatever, but the center of culture was not in Northern Europe. Certainly not in Scandinavia. Nope. Not one single bit. Ghost of Niccolo says that they are both brown books. Well, then what is the Bible, Ghost of Niccolo? You think the Bible was made by blonde-haired, blue-eyed people? Ghost of Niccolo says that Christian Armenians and Coptics look like Muslims. Okay. I mean, Islam is a religion. It's not really an ethnicity. It's not a race. There's a lot of whites that are Muslim, and there's a lot of non-whites that are Christian. That's all that I was trying to say. But yeah, I really don't care what a bunch of libertarian people that think that they are National Socialist, or even think that they're like somehow neo-Confederate. It's so dumb, dude. They have more in common with the thinking of Barry Goldwater and Richard Nixon than they do with the angry mustache man, or with whomever they think that they authoritarian figure of the last 300 years that they think that they're somehow connected to. It's the craziest shit I've ever seen. And there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that is funnier in the world than to be in a Discord where 80% of the people are probably special needs in one form or another, and they call you an autistic spurg because you're being a real person. You're being a real one. Let's just be honest, you're being a real one. Are people that think that vaginoplasties think that that means that they're better than an incel. Okay, not that I'm saying I'm an incel. I mean, really? Oh, really, dude? No. It's not how it works. That's not how that shit works, amigo. You have been in 4chan way too long. You need to log off and touch some grass. Okay? You just need to touch some grass, and you need to get out into the real world and stop living in this fake internet shit that you have made up in your head. You have just basically coped and have taken a bunch of 1930s ideologies and thoughts and 1980s fiscal conservatism and maybe some 1860s or 1776 stuff, and you've loosely mixed all that baggage together, and you think it's not going to be cognitive dissonance. It is. Western civilization for the last 50 years has been complete garbage. Western civilization has not done anything since man first went to the moon. Okay? Ever since Armstrong set foot on the moon in 1969, Western civilization has been going straight down the toilet. I know that that's kind of a Malthusian thing to say, but it is what it is, okay? The basis of your ideology is Thomas Malthus and his Malthusian book in 1798. That is the juxtaposition of your ideology. And furthermore, racial eugenics was first proposed by Francis Galton, who was a student of Charles Darwin. Okay? So, imagine being a white nationalist Christian when white nationalism originates from the eugenics movement that was started by social Darwinists, who thought the Bible was basically just a bunch of poetry, a bunch of historical commentation, and just really completely fake. Didn't believe in any of the miracles in the Bible. And that's where white nationalism comes from. Okay? Oh yeah, there's also a bunch of people in there that think that the British are the true lost tribes of Israel. So we got the Nordic equivalent, the white equivalent of the black Hebrew Israelites. We got these fuckers in the Discord, And they're basically the Nordic version of the black Hebrew Israelites. And it's just so fucking dumb. People are fucking dumb. They just think that basically blonde-haired, blue-eyed Nordic people are the only ones that ever created any kind of culture or civilization. And it's just insane. Politics is garbage. Politics is dumb. If you're a baby boomer, I can understand why you would care. But if you're not from the baby boomer generation, if you're after the baby boomers, you're wasting your time. You're absolutely wasting your fucking life worrying about fucking politics all the time. You really think that some politician in Washington really gives a shit? Or a politician in Toronto really gives a shit what is going on with your life? They don't. They don't care, and it's not a democracy. It's a thesionocracy. It's a thesionocracy, dude. It is a mercantile-driven plutocracy. It is a complete oligarchy. America is an oligarchy. It is not a democracy. It is the most fake nonsense I have ever heard in my entire life. So Ghost of Nicolos says that he believes that the Bible was written by white people. What sort of white people? You mean by white people, you mean just blue-eyed and blonde-haired Nordics? Surely you would not include the Irish, because according to Nordics, the Irish were not white. Interdimensional Lizard says, we don't know what the Canaanites looked like. It's possible they were white, even if their land is currently populated by browns. Okay, well then, why is it not white now? Why is it different now than it was then? Okay? Explain that one to me. Drunken Surfer says, you don't think people had nationalist ideas before Darwin? The idea and the concept of the nation-state came out of the French Revolution. Napoleon Bonaparte and the French revolutionaries who toppled the traditional monarchy were the ones who created the mobilization for the nation-state. They were the first modern nation to really rally around that concept of national centralization. It was done by revolutionaries and not by fiscal conservatives. Classical liberals were the first people to build a nation-state, the nation-state concept. It was actually liberals that did that first. Interdimensional Lizard said that it is not white now because browns migrated there. Well, then where did the whites go? Where did all the whites go to then? Browns moved in, then where did the whites go? Okay? You can't, that body of land cannot just be cohabitated by both groups. Okay? Something's got to give and something's got to take. In order for something to be taken, something has got to be given. Okay? So those white people had to go somewhere else. Nodgim says hot takes. Drunken Surfer says white flight. This is coming from a guy that thinks that this is coming basically from a self-hating Jew. This is coming from a self-hating Jew that is saying that Jews are white, which contradicts everything that the angry mustache man angry mustache man, call him whatever you want, the Austrian painter said. Okay, so I guess now Jews are white people, according to Drunken Surfer. Ghost of Nicolos says, I mean white people of the Fertile Crescent. The whites went to Europe and America from those desert places. Okay? No jets, no airliners, no trains, no cars, none of it. No modern technology. We're talking about chariots, Bronze Age chariots. How in the world are millions of people going to move from the Middle East to Europe with Bronze Age tech, Iron Age tech? How does that happen? Are they just going to build, I don't know, 50,000 Mediterranean triremes and just move to Europe? Like, for real, dude? Why then were the Germans more backward than the Romans, okay? If the Celts and the Germanics moved to Europe on Greek triremes, why is it just a few hundred years later, now they're just a bunch of barbarians in the north? Now they're just a bunch of barbarians in the forest. Are you kidding me? Drunken Surfer says they rode chariots to America. That's esoteric for you there, buddy. Esoteric National Socialism. Drunken Surfer, okay, I already read that. Chariots are ATVs. This is how India was conquered by the Aryans. Yeah, dude, something tells me you're not from India. Something tells me that you're probably a cringe-ass Lord Spurg that's pretending like he might be from India. As if you're a Brahmin, dude. Like, dude, as if you're actually a Brahmin. Ghost of Niccolo says, not even needed. On foot and slowly. Yeah, that's bullshit. That's just bullshit. All that stuff is a bunch of pseudo-historical nonsense. The Romans of the early centuries BC and the Italians today essentially look the same. Ancient and modern Greeks essentially look exactly the same. Ancient and modern Egyptians look more or less the same, phenotypically speaking. Chinese in the Tang Dynasty and Chinese today look exactly the fucking same. The only reason Mexicans look different from Mesoamericans is because they intermarried with Spanish conquistadors and with black Africans. But even then, you got Native Americans in Mexico that still speak the Aztec language. Okay, it's bullshit. Everything that is being said in the chat is just complete nonsense. It's pseudo-history. Pseudo-historical nonsense. Pseudo-historical bullshit and lies, dude. Most people that have my skin tone would want me to be dead. Okay? You know what? I have a German surname, and it is a fact of history that Germany killed all of their Asperger's people in World War II. Well, actually before World War II. So the German National Socialists murdered every single one of their Aspergian people, neurodivergent people. So all the neurodivergent people are gone out of Germany. Bye-bye. They're gone. They're dead. They were killed. So, I've got this one retard that tried to tell YouTube, oh, you're Jewish, and this video hurts your little feelings. Okay, retard. Try to flag it down and didn't work. Okay? Fucking retard. No-life retard that thinks that some brony troon is hot. And they didn't like what I said about it. They didn't like my takes. And they got real butthurt about it and tried to flag my stuff. Nothing's happened yet. Absolute bullshit. Nog Jim says, green eyes and auburn hair, a son of Genghis and Mohammed. You're just being extremely sarcastic. Interdimensional Lizard says, those old Roman statues look a bit more Germanic than today's Italians. No, the Lombards were more Germanic than today's Italians. Today's Italians are not related to the Lombards. Some of them are. There's a bit of Germanic admixture, but until the Dark Ages, there was very little in the way of Northern European ancestry in the Italian peninsula. Today's Italians are far more genetically inclined to be related to the Romans and the pre-Roman Italic peoples like the Etruscans and the Greeks of Magna Graecia than they would the barbarians that went into there during the Dark Ages. Like, dude, where do you people get these ideas from? This is insane. Like, dude, this is complete retardation. This is stupid. It is really stupid to think that kind of stuff. Also, a very substantial number of Scotch-Irish married with the Cherokee and the Creek. That is a fact. A lot of people in the Deep South intermarried with the Cherokee. There's probably a lot of people in the clan that are actually part Cherokee. Nog Jim says that's why they lost, a severe mistake. What are you talking about, dude? Not sure what you're talking about. What's up, Krell? How are you doing? 07. So yeah, St. Augustine said that man is under original sin, and man is fallen, okay? Since Adam and Eve, man has been in a fallen, corrupt state. Completely sinful, corrupt state. And I think it's just rich when a bunch of brony white nationalists say that Muslims are more radical than them. The Muslims have traditional families. They eat very clean. Muslims are very clean. They're very traditional. And they fast. They have wives and kids. And half of you guys in those discords are probably undercover bronies. One of you even has an account on a brony website. The fucking retard that was trying to flag one of my videos down because I told them that vaginoplasties do not qualify to make you above so-called incels or involuntary celibates. Okay? Your friends, some of your friends are on a brony Discord. You know, this is the levels of the Dark Ninja. And the Dark Ninja is hilarious, dude. He calls everyone a pedo after he's been exposed as the real pedo. This is why I tell you, don't call people pedos just because you don't like them, because it's going to bite you in the butt. Okay? Only retards that have nothing better to do that stuff. And so we got a guy called Runzi, new here, I like what I hear. Okay, buddy, sure you do. Niccolo says that the Apache used the flying windmill, and that's a place somewhere in the Middle East. Bronx exposed, truth revealed. Yeah, there was a time when the Irish were not considered white. Like, there was literally a time in America when the Irish were not considered to be white. And then there was a time when Italians were not considered white. or Slavs considered white. So, what exactly is white? What exactly is white to begin with? It's nonsense. It's all up in the air. Basically, it's bullshit. And it comes from Malthusianism. So, the first world is not the answer. The first world is not going to do nothing to save the human race. It's going to come out of the third world. If there's going to be changes that are going to dramatically affect and shape world history, it's going to come from either the developing countries or it's going to come from extreme radical shift. Extremely radical, revolutionary shift in the first world. And, anyways, let's see here. That is a genetic fallacy. That's a straw man argument that you just made. That's a complete straw man argument. Absolute made up nonsense. So, yeah, most of these people that say that they are going to protect and prolong the existence of the West 2,000 years ago were a bunch of barbarians. 1,000 years ago didn't even identify with the classical culture of Greece and Rome. They identified with medieval Christendom. They identified with the medieval Christian church that didn't even consider classical Greece and Rome to be its predecessor. They considered the people of the Bible to be the predecessor of the medieval Christian world. Most of the ideas that these libertarians have today is from the Enlightenment. Actually, it's from the 20th century. It's actually even more recent. Classical liberalism, a lot of these people would consider classical liberalism to be essentially just eugenics or something weird like that. So, yeah, I don't really think that there's such a thing as race. Not anymore anyways, and even if there is, white people are so stupid. Like most at least white Zoomers anyways, are so dumb. It's just they're so stupid and so wasteful. And they're just basically classical liberals. Okay? When has classical liberalism ever done anything in terms of conserving values? When has promoting pornography ever done a thing to help to bring the population up? Much less birth control, much less abortion, much less any of those things. So, I'm done. Thank y'all for watching. I don't care what a bunch of Discord spurgs think. Discord spurgs are going to Discord spurg. And I think I've pretty much made my point.